On a warm September afternoon in 1994, over 60 schoolchildren at the Uriel School in Ruwa, Zimbabwe, gathered in the playground for their afternoon recess. Little did they know, a bizarre and unknown event was about to unfold, leaving a lasting impact on them throughout the rest of their lives. At around 10 AM on September 16th, while the pupils were outside on mid-morning break, they noticed a glowing object hovering above the trees in front of them, which suddenly descended towards the ground. It was reported by multiple eye sightings, small humanoid figures left the bright object, emanating in front of the schoolchildren. Suddenly, the strange shapes were reported to have moved toward them, and the tall creatures communicated with the children telepathically. Teachers, who were in a meeting at the time, were baffled, while concerned parents confronted the school about these wild tales from their children. The sighting was reported on ZBC Radio, which has attracted many researchers who have been drawn to investigate this conspiracy. Just shy of 2 months after the incident, Harvard University professor of psychiatry John Mack, including parapsychologist Dr. Ian Stevenson, visited the Uriel School to interview witnesses. The investigators collected physical evidence from the site, including soil samples and eyewitness accounts. Eventually, they concluded that the children's experiences may have been real. According to the interviews, 62 children between the ages of 6 and 12 claimed to have seen at least one UFO. The basic details of the sightings were quite consistent, although not all of the details were. One or more silver objects, usually described as discs, appeared in the sky. They then floated down to a field of brush and small trees just outside school property. Between 1 and 4 creatures with big eyes, dressed in all black, exited a craft and approached the children. At this point, many of the children ran, but some, mostly older pupils, stayed and watched the approach. In that November, John Mack had arrived in person to interview the children. Many drawings were made by them, all amazingly seemed to match each other with a great deal of detail. It was also astonishing how many of the children's stories were consistent with each other, yet the recordings were undoubtedly unsettling.
What was the feeling when you looked at the eyes?
It was scary.
Scary? Why? What made it scary?
The eyes looked evil.
What was evil about them?
It looked evil because it was just staring at me.
Staring at you? As if what?
As if it wanted to come and take us.
How did those thoughts come to you? Did they come to you from the craft or from
the man.
And did the man say those things to you?
He never said anything. It was just the eyes.
What was the sense you got from those eyes?
he was interested.
Not everyone agrees on the explanation for the Ruwa incident. There had been reports of UFOs in the skies over Zimbabwe only 2 days before, but it's understood that it was unlikely that any of the students were aware of these reports. Uriel was a private elementary school in the suburbs of Ruwa, a small distant town in Zimbabwe. Today, Ruwa isn't a village so far out of the capital, Harare, in which Western media influence may have played a part. However, back in 1994, Ruwa was described not even as a town, but only a local place name. It was quoted as little more than a crossroads in an agricultural region. Several of the children stated that they had seen 3 unknown flying objects in the skies over the school prior to the landing. It was said that this may have been the cause of a mass hallucination, which isn't an uncommon sighting between groups of individuals in a panicked or influenced state. Yet, there was piling evidence that made any explanation for the event seem impossible to answer. The children's accounts were consistent and detailed, with many of them describing similar features and behaviours of the figures. This suggests that the children were not simply imagining the so-called large-eyed men, but rather that they had a genuine, shared experience. To this day, those 60 children, now adults, 29 years after the sighting, all stick by their story through recent and ongoing interviews. Their tale has always stayed the same, with many of the witnesses expressing their tiredness and wanting to just live their lives. Some having said not even to tell their friends or spouses about that day, in fear of ridicule. But does the controversy surrounding the Ruwa incident add to the ongoing fascination and speculation about the possibility of extraterrestrial visitors? Maybe it could have been a deeper influence, or perhaps it's just a hoax. Regardless of the cause, both fear and fascination emanates from the group of those 60 school children that strange day. This encounter has led to the Ruwa incident being investigated as one of the most intriguing and unknown extraterrestrial events in history.